Dominica World, good morning, good morning. Welcome to this another edition of the Cooperative Voice program. I'm your host, Phoenix Belfield. Apologies for the late start. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to the folks at Q95 for joining the broadcast as usual, and for the folks on our social media pages of the Credit Union and also on Emo News. We're excited to be here. Thank you very much for your support, your continued support, and for those who are going to participate in the discussion. Tell you what, today we wanted to discuss on the role of the board of directors. And as we were putting together for this program, a couple of persons reached out to me and said, listen, this thing is extensive for us to condense it in one section. So today we'll be talking briefly about the role of directors, but then we're going to incorporate a little bit about the governance architecture and responsibilities of the credit union board of directors. As you may know, the whole idea of corporate governance is intrinsically linked to proper governance on the credit union, the credit union boards, and we want to ensure that the credit unions are properly run and properly governed. And so there are some rules and guidelines that by law set out the charter by which those directors will make certain decisions and uh, take full functions and responsibilities for the actions and undertakings of the credit union. And those are captured under a couple of the regulations here: the Cooperative Societies Act, two of the revised laws of the Commonwealth of Dominica, the regulations, the SRO, the societies bylaw, and other laws governing the operations governing the operations of the credit union. And so these are some of the laws that are responsible for the decision making of the board of directors in the credit union, in the credit unions itself. Now, today I want us to look a little bit about the responsibility of the board of directors. So, what we're going to do, we're just going to show you a little bit about what is captured in the act, and then we're going to look a little bit about the board management relationship, because the responsibility of the board of directors, as you would have seen when we discussed the responsibility of the credit committee, supervisory committee, the board of directors really has a lot on their plate. And it is important that persons who are going to be volunteering to be on board of directors, that they understand the responsibility that they have and the mandate that they have and the duty of care that are necessary for them to do and exercise the responsibilities and the functions that they have. So under the act, the mentioned act, the Cooperative Societies Act, it says a board shall, under 56, exercise the powers of the cooperative society directly or indirectly through the employees and agents of the cooperative society. On the B, it says, ensure that good governance and direct management of the business and the affairs of the cooperative society. And C, formulate and implement the policies of the cooperative society. It also says under 57 of the same act that the board may establish committees for the more efficient management of various aspects of the business or the affairs of the cooperative society. Now, this is really just a condensed explanation or decree as to what is captured under the board responsibility. You may find at your credit union that you'll have, and we intend to circulate an updated version of the job descriptions for all of the volunteers. Additional responsibilities are also captured in the bylaws of the credit union. But let's look at a couple other things. Let's look at corporate governance, because I think this is really where, if we understand the issue of corporate governance, then it makes your serving on the board to be even more easier. And essentially, best practices for corporate governance speaks to the issue where credit union boards and management are responsible for maintaining this corporate governance framework. They're also responsible for having a more focused relationship and policies and processes that will provide for a greater strategic direction and control within the organization. We also need a strong corporate governance framework to ensure that our credit unions are safe and sound. And then we also needed to ensure that we can remain competitive, resilient, profitable amidst the changing dynamics within the market space. And so essentially, corporate governance is that framework that allows us to, as we say, do that tango dance, allows us to manage his board, manage the affair of the credit union, maintain a strong corporate governance and corporate culture within the credit union, and creates that dynamic within which boards can assess management's performance. So this is really your first stop. How do we understand corporate governance, and how do we implement a strong corporate culture within the credit unions to ensure that board understands their responsibility, management does too, and board understands where that demarcation line is. And once we understand that, I think we're going to go a long way in effectively running the credit union as board of directors. All right. Like I said in the previous broadcast, you are not going to be left in a sea all by yourself. You're going to have directors that were there before you that are going to share their knowledge and experience with you. But these are some of the things that you need, and you do not need to wait until you're nominated to the board to begin to read up on these matters. I think from the time you've expressed an interest, you should already begin to familiarize yourself with some of the responsibilities of the board. So, one of them, which is probably one of the more obvious ones, is to provide a clear governance framework that deals with the soundness of the credit union, establishing policies and risks. The board, as the chief custodian or governor of the credit union, is responsible for setting up this framework and to ensuring that management applies everything within the script laws and regulations. The directors also has what we call a fiduciary duties, which is really just a big word to say that you have a strong responsibility, moral, ethical, and professional responsibility to your credit union to ensure that you act in the best interest of the credit union. And how can you do so, you may ask? Well, you can do so in two ways. One, through decision making and oversight. So you establish your policies, establish strategic goals and objectives, and so forth. And then two, you take certain actions by, for example, hiring management, establishing budget, and delegating certain authority to management. Now, this delegation is very important because the board is not supposed to micromanage an organization. You're not supposed to get into the operational nitty-gritties of management. You're supposed to question management on its responsibilities, question management on the assumptions of certain decisions that management is undertaking, but not to operationalize those mandates. You are supposed to set the policies, the guidance framework, set the goalposts, set the targets, set the strategic direction of the credit union, and let the managers manage. So, as we say, board governs, management manages, not the other way around. So, this is really where, once we understand this to be the core of corporate governance within the credit union, I think we're going to be on our way to ensuring that we have a strong corporate culture within the credit union. Apart from that, some of the responsibilities of the board, remember, you have to provide financial oversight. You need to review financial performance of the credit union. You need to have a strong risk management policies and culture and framework within the credit union. You need to also understand, which is, I think, it's probably one of the most critical part of what you're going to be required to do as a board of directors, is to understand the role, understand your role, and understand management's role in conducting the day-to-day management of the credit union. All right. So it is your responsibility to manage management and give management the mandate to do what is it that the strategic priorities of the board of directors mandate or is set forward. Okay, so your decision effectively, and directors must oversee credit union operations effectively. So that is why management reports to you. And as a result, you make informed decisions without exercising the role of management. And really, this this understates what I said earlier, that you oversee the operations, but you do not involve in the operations itself. So management reports to you, you question management on some of the decisions it's making and so forth, but you don't get into the micromanagement. And this is key because sometimes you have people who do not know much about the credit union corporate culture, and you come in and there's an attempt in instead of understanding the credit union corporate culture, there's a tendency to want to micromanage, and this is wrong. So this is something that if we can understand from the get-go, we can understand from day one, then it makes it so incredibly easy for boards to govern and manage to manage and management to manage, because you understand where that demarcation line is. And this, my friends, are really the essential. Now, there are some other things that you need to know regarding this board to management relationship. We talk about the corporate powers, we talk about your responsibility. There's also duty of care and how the board manages that relationship with management. The board is primarily responsible for the safety and soundness of the credit union. And so, as a mandate to make those responsibilities or to meet those responsibilities, you are now required under law to establish policies and as a result, and hire competent people who will ensure that those policies are kept and that the strategic priorities of the credit union is achieved. Okay, so you delegate operational management and duties and function to the senior management, and they in turn conduct the day-to-day operations. All right. So once this is understood, I think we're going to be a long way in providing that sort of effective governance framework for management and for the board, and to ensuring that the board can work in a harmonious relationship with itself, with the supervisory and compliance committee, with the credit committee, and with management. So it is really for the board to, what we say, set the tone at the top, create that, and create and encourage that corporate governance culture that ensures that the credit union is properly run, is tactically run, it is run based on the strategic priorities and the policies, and that management understands what are the requirements or the mandates of the board. And once that is done, you see what will happen. The board, once it exercises its oversight over management decisions, then you're going to hold management responsible for those decisions that it makes. Okay? So this is very important. First, business, understanding that demarcation line between board and management. Once you've understood that, then understand the relationships between yourself, supervisory committee, and credit committee is of paramount importance. Once you've done that, then getting into the mandate of what the board is responsible for, that should really set the tone. And once we begin to set the tone at the top, we can see what we call balanced board, where you have effective board, effective management, a great management relationship, and a credit union that is run like a well-oiled machine. All right. So this is it for our time on this segment, where we just looked at the board management relationship. We looked at some aspects of corporate governance and how is it that understanding where that demarcation line is between board and management really helps within the credit union movement. So on our subsequent broadcast, we'll get into the other nitty-gritty details of the duties of the board of directors. What will you be required on a day-to-day basis? Well, I shouldn't say day-to-day, I should say meeting-to-meeting basis, to do as part of your mandate. So those of you who are seeking to serve on the board of directors, we don't just want you to come at the meeting and somebody nominate you and, as we say, you wash your feet and come. We want you to come knowing, to come empowered, know what your responsibilities are going to be, and know that you're coming to volunteer. And it is not as hard as it sounds, neither is it as easy as it sounds. But we want you to come knowing fully well so that you can fully commit to your role as a board of directors. All right? This has been it for me. We're over time, But I appreciate the patience of our listeners in joining the broadcast and those of you who continue to message and send questions and participate in the discussion. Again, we'll be focusing on our subsequent broadcasts about the role and the responsibility of board of directors. We'll get into the job description of the board of directors so that by the time the AGM comes, you will be fully aware as to what is required of you. Until then, thank you for joining the broadcast. Thank you for supporting the credit union movement. Again, this edition of the Cooperative Voice program has been brought to you with the kind compliments of the M. Lajan and the Dominican Cooperative Societies League and our credit union partners. I take the opportunity to give a shout out to our credit union staff and volunteers for the stellar work that they've been doing and they continue to do. Until then, Dominica World, good morning.
Send me money. Send me money. Receive money. Receive money. Send me money. No more hassle. M. L'Argent. Send me money. Send me money. Receive money. Receive money. M. L'Argent. It's safe and secure. M. L'Argent. You want to send your money to friends and family. No more standing in line. M. L'Argent. It's a new digital financial service brought to you by the Dominica Credit Union Movement. Introduces a new wallet solution, M. L'Argent. Top up friends, pay bills, make shopping easy, extra secure. Sign up is absolutely free. M. L'Argent. You want to send your money to friends and family. No more standing in line. No more M. L'Argent. Download the M. L'Argent app today. See your credit union for more details. M. L'Argent, your mobile payment solution. M. L'Argent.